I am Dr. Rachel Stevens, a neuropsychologist formerly with the University Medical Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Over the course of my career, I've conducted evaluations on thousands of patients suffering from traumatic brain injuries, various memory disorders, PTSD, and nearly every form of cognitive impairment imaginable. I've encountered individuals who couldn't recall their own names, others who vividly recollected events that never occurred, and some who experienced the overnight loss of decades of memories. However, the particular case I'm about to recount compelled me to reevaluate every assumption I held regarding memory, consciousness, and the very essence of human identity. It remains the one case that troubles me to this day, prompting me to question whether my own memories are genuinely accurate or if they have subtly degraded over time without my awareness. In the spring of 1993, I received a phone call that irrevocably altered my understanding of the human mind. Dr. Marche Isabella, a therapist based in Napa Valley, California, reached out to me concerning a case that had already generated considerable debate within the psychiatric community. Her voice conveyed an underlying sense of urgency as she outlined the situation. Dr. Stevens, I desperately need your expertise on a deeply unsettling case. I've been practicing for over a decade and have never encountered anything quite like it. It involves a young woman named Holly Ramona. The memories she has recovered during therapy are so intricate, so powerfully vivid, that they have utterly devastated an entire family. But the more I reflect on it, the more I ponder if we've unknowingly opened a door that should have remained sealed. Holly, then a 23-year-old student at UC Irvine, had initially sought treatment for bulimia and depression. What began as a standard therapeutic approach for eating disorders had gradually devolved into something significantly more disturbing. During her sessions with Dr. Isabella, Holly began to recover what appeared to be repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse allegedly perpetrated by her father, Gary Ramona. These were not indistinct impressions or ambiguous recollections. Instead, they were highly detailed, horrifying memories that, to Holly, felt more authentic and real than her actual present life. The situation had already fractured the Ramona family and was progressing towards what would become one of the most significant legal battles in the history of psychological practice. Yet what most perturbed me about Dr. Isabella's call wasn't the impending legal ramifications. It was the palpable fear in her voice. Dr. Stevens, this case has given me nightmares. Holly's memories are so striking, so emotionally convincing, that at times I find myself questioning my own childhood recollections. If memories can be this persuasive and still be false, how can any of us genuinely trust what we remember? Upon my arrival in Napa Valley in May 1993, I anticipated conducting a routine neuropsychological evaluation. What I discovered instead was a young woman ensnared in a self-made mental torment and a family utterly shattered by memories that felt more substantial than reality itself. My initial encounter with Holly Ramona occurred in a stark conference room at the treatment facility. The moment she entered, I could perceive the immense burden of her alleged memories etched into every feature of her face. Her eating disorder had left her painfully thin, but it was her eyes that particularly haunted me. They held an unprecedented blend of absolute conviction and profound bewilderment. Dr. Stevens, she articulated, her voice barely a whisper. I know what my father did to me. The memories are so clear now. I can smell his cologne, feel the texture of the living room carpet, hear the sound of my mother's car pulling into the driveway while it was happening. These are not fantasies or dreams. They are memories, real memories. As Holly commenced describing her experiences, a chill swept through me that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She wasn't merely recounting events, she was reliving them. Her body language shifted dramatically. Her voice adopted the cadence of a terrified child, and tears streamed down her face as she detailed incidents of abuse that she claimed had transpired between the ages of 5 and 16. It began to return gradually, Holly explained, her hands trembling as she spoke. Initially, it was just feelings. I would wake from nightmares I couldn't quite recall, but they left me feeling soiled and afraid. Dr. Isabella helped me comprehend that these might be my mind's way of attempting to convey something significant. What rendered Holly's case especially unsettling was the progressive nature of her memory recovery. When she first commenced therapy, she possessed no conscious recollections of sexual abuse. Her sole complaints were bulimia and depression, serious issues but not uncommon among university students. It was only after several months of therapy, specifically aimed at uncovering repressed trauma, that these memories began to surface. The breakthrough came during a session with Dr. Rose, Holly continued, referring to Dr. Richard Rose at Western Medical Center in Anaheim. He administered something called sodium amytal to help me access the memories my mind had concealed. During that session, everything became lucid. I could recall specific incidents, exact words my father had uttered. It was like watching a film of my own life that I had forgotten existed. The mention of sodium amytal sent another shiver through me. I was well aware of the drug's potential effects on the human mind, how it could render patients exceptionally suggestible and susceptible to forming detailed, false memories that felt utterly authentic. However, witnessing Holly's emotional reaction to her supposed memories, observing her re-experience what she genuinely believed to be trauma, compelled me to question everything I thought I understood about the distinction between genuine and fabricated memories. Over the course of multiple sessions with Holly, I began to perceive troubling consistencies in her recollections. Her memories were excessively flawless, too theatrically complete. Authentic traumatic memories from childhood are typically fragmented, inconsistent, and painful to retrieve. Holly's memories unfolded like scenes from a motion picture, complete with dialogue, sensory specifics, and a narrative coherence that seemed improbable for genuine trauma memories. Yet what most unnerved me was Holly's unwavering conviction in their veracity. She didn't just believe these memories were real, she knew they were real, with the same absolute certainty with which one knows their own name. When I requested her to describe specific incidents, she would close her eyes, appearing to observe the events unfold within her mind. "I can see the living room where it happened," she would assert, her voice adopting an eerie, distant quality. The brown carpet, the way the afternoon light streamed through the curtains, the ticking sound of the clock on the mantel. I remember thinking that if I concentrated on the clock, I could make the moment pass more quickly and it would be over sooner. The level of detail was remarkable and profoundly disquieting. Holly could describe not only what had allegedly occurred, but also peripheral details about the surroundings, the time of day, what she was wearing, which television program had been playing in the background. It was the kind of comprehensive recall that seemed to bolster the authenticity of her memories. Nevertheless, it also raised significant concerns for anyone acquainted with the actual mechanisms of memory. As I delved deeper into Holly's case, I discovered that her memories had been confirmed through increasingly intensive therapy sessions. Dr. Isabella had utilized techniques designed to assist Holly in accessing what they believed were repressed memories, encouraging her to trust her feelings and impressions even when they seemed indistinct or contradictory. Dr. Isabella explained that my mind was trying to shield me from the trauma, Holly confided during one particularly intense session. She said that victims of childhood sexual abuse often completely repress their memories, and that my eating disorder and depression were manifestations of buried trauma struggling to emerge. She helped me understand that I needed to trust the memories as they returned, even if they were painful. The inherent problem was that the methodologies employed, guided imagery, hypnotic regression, and a persistent focus on uncovering sexual abuse, were precisely the techniques that research had demonstrated could generate false memories. But Holly had no means of knowing this. She placed absolute trust in her therapists and genuinely believed that they were helping her unearth vital information about her past. What made the case even more disturbing was my interview with Holly's family. I met with her mother, Stephanie Ramona, in their Napa Valley home, and what I learned painted an entirely different portrait of Holly's childhood. Holly was always Daddy's little girl, Stephanie recounted, her eyes brimming with tears. She and Gary shared such a wonderful relationship. She would constantly climb all over him, insist on sitting on his lap during family movie nights, and was always asking him for help with homework or school projects. If anything inappropriate had been happening, I would have known. I was always home, always watching my children. Stephanie presented family photographs and home videos from Holly's childhood. In every image, Holly appeared joyful, self-assured, and completely at ease with her father. There were photographs of family vacations, birthday celebrations, school events, all depicting a normal, loving family with no indications of the trauma that Holly now claimed to recall. The hardest part, Stephanie continued, is that Holly's memories are so meticulously detailed and she's so convinced they're real that sometimes I find myself wondering if I was blind to what was happening in my own home. Could my husband have been abusing my daughter for years without my knowledge? Could I have failed to protect my child that completely? This, perhaps, represented the most insidious aspect of false memory cases. They did not merely impact the person experiencing the false memories, they instilled doubt and pervasive guilt in everyone connected to them. Family members began to question their own recollections, their own judgment, and even their own understanding of reality. I also had the opportunity to interview Gary Ramona himself, and what I encountered was a man whose existence had been utterly shattered by the fictitious memories fabricated by his daughter. Gary, once an accomplished executive at a local winery, had found his career, his marriage, and his paternal relationships irrevocably lost due to these grave accusations. "Dr. Stevens," he articulated, his voice heavy with the burdens of weariness and sorrow, "I cherish my daughter more than my own life. The notion that I could have inflicted any harm upon her is profoundly agonizing. Yet what truly devastates me is her genuine conviction in these events. She isn't fabricating stories or attempting to wound me. She honestly believes I abused her." How does one contend with someone's memories? How can you conclusively prove that an event never transpired when the alleged victim is so absolutely persuaded of its occurrence? Gary's anguish was palpable, but so too was Holly's. Both were unfortunate casualties of a therapeutic process that had engineered false memories so persuasive they superseded the reality of actual occurrences. The true tragedy lay in the fact that everyone involved, Holly, her family, and even her therapists, had genuinely sought to assist her, yet the methods employed had conjured a nightmare that was systematically dismantling multiple lives. The deeper I delved into Holly's particular case, the more I comprehended that I was confronting something that profoundly challenged the very bedrock of human identity. If memories could possess such persuasive power while simultaneously being entirely fictitious, what implications did that hold for the dependability of our own self-perception? How many of our treasured memories from youth might be partially or wholly inaccurate? How could we ever attain absolute certainty about our personal histories? These inquiries grew even more unsettling when I administered assessments designed to gauge Holly's susceptibility to false memories. The outcomes indicated that she scored considerably above average on measures of suggestibility, signifying a particular propensity to assimilate suggested information into her memory. However, the most alarming realization was that every individual is susceptible to false memories given the right circumstances. During one particularly disquieting session, I resolved to probe the limitations of Holly's memory certainty. I requested that she narrate one of her alleged abuse memories in meticulous detail, and then asked her to reiterate the same description a week later. While the fundamental components remained consistent, I observed subtle alterations in peripheral details. The hue of a piece of clothing, the precise words reportedly spoken, the specific time of day when the incident purportedly unfolded. "Holly," I gently interjected, "I've noted some minor discrepancies in your recounting of this memory. Does this cause you any concern?" She regarded me with an expression that conveyed both bewilderment and mild annoyance. "Dr. Stevens, I unequivocally know what transpired. These memories are as real as the conversation we are having at this very moment. The mere fact that some insignificant details might be indistinct doesn't invalidate the abuse itself. Traumatic memories are not flawless, but the central truth endures." The unwavering conviction in her voice was absolute, and that fundamentally made the case so terrifying. Holly was experiencing neither doubt nor uncertainty about her memories. She was experiencing them with the same certitude one experiences recollections of what was consumed for breakfast that morning. As the legal proceedings advanced towards trial, I found myself grappling with questions that transcended the domains of psychology and neuroscience. If Holly's memories felt entirely authentic to her, were they, in some meaningful capacity, real, even if they had not objectively occurred? What distinguished a lived experience from a remembered experience if both felt equally genuine to the individual undergoing them? The subsequent legal proceedings were unlike anything I had ever encountered. Gary Ramona initiated a lawsuit against Dr. Isabella, Dr. Rose, and Western Medical Center, asserting that they had implanted false memories in his daughter through inappropriate therapeutic methodologies. It represented the first instance of its kind, and its implications were monumental. During my testimony as an expert witness, I was tasked with elucidating to the jury how false memories could feel so profoundly real and emotionally authentic. Ladies and gentlemen, I stated, what renders this case so profoundly disturbing is that Holly's memories are not transparently false. They do not contradict physical evidence, nor do they contain impossible elements. They feel real because, in terms of how the brain processes them, they are real. The neural pathways that store these false memories are indistinguishable from those that store genuine memories. The courtroom fell silent as I continued. This implies that any of us could potentially develop false memories under the appropriate conditions. The techniques employed in Holly's therapy, suggestion, expectation, and a persistent focus on unearthing repressed trauma, could, in theory, foster false memories in anyone. The human mind is considerably more pliable than we are inclined to believe. I observed the countenances of the jury members as I spoke, and I could discern the impact of my words. Several appeared uneasy, as if they were suddenly questioning their own recollections. One woman actually requested permission from the judge to be excused, claiming that my testimony was causing her to doubt her own childhood memories. The trial unveiled unsettling specifics regarding the genesis of Holly's false memories. Dr. Rose had administered sodium amytal explicitly to facilitate Holly's access to what they perceived as repressed memories of sexual abuse. Under the influence of the pharmaceutical agent, Holly furnished detailed accounts of abuse that felt entirely real to her. However, sodium amytal does not unlock latent memories. It profoundly increases an individual's suggestibility. Under its sway, patients can construct elaborate false memories based on subtle cues from therapists or their own pre-existing expectations about what they might uncover. The drug essentially transformed Holly's therapy sessions into an exercise in guided fantasy, which she subsequently recalled as genuine experience. The most chilling moment of the trial arrived when recordings of Holly's sodium amytal session were played in court. I observed Holly's face as she listened to her own voice describing incidents of abuse that had never materialized. For the first time since our initial meeting, I perceived a flicker of doubt in her gaze. "That's my voice," she whispered to her attorney. "But I don't recall saying those things in precisely that manner. Some of the details sound different from how I recollect them." That brief instant of uncertainty was simultaneously heartbreaking and terrifying. Holly was beginning to grasp that her most traumatic memories might not be reliable, but she was also confronting the possibility that her entire self-identity had been constructed upon fraudulent experiences. The jury's verdict in 1994 was unequivocal. They found in favor of Gary Ramona, awarding him $500,000 in damages and establishing that the therapists had employed techniques highly likely to generate false memories. Yet the legal triumph felt hollow when I contemplated the immense human toll. Holly's family lay in ruins. Her grasp on reality was shattered, and everyone involved had been traumatized by the ordeal. Subsequent to the trial, I continued to monitor Holly's case and to investigate the broader ramifications of false memory syndrome. What I discovered was that Holly's experience was not singular. Thousands of families had been torn apart by false memories cultivated through well-intentioned but scientifically unsound therapeutic approaches. The most disturbing facet of my research was the realization that memory is vastly more fragile and impressionable than most individuals comprehend. Every time we retrieve an event from memory, we potentially modify it subtly, influenced by our current knowledge, emotional state, and expectations. Over time, these minor alterations can accumulate until our memories bear scant resemblance to the actual occurrences. This implies that all of us navigate life carrying memories that are, at least in part, fictitious. The childhood birthday celebration you remember so fondly might have transpired differently from your recollection. The embarrassing high school incident might have been less traumatic than you remember, or more traumatic, or might not have occurred in the manner you perceive at all. Years later, I continue to reflect upon Holly Ramona and the profound questions her case brought forth concerning the essence of memory and identity. She genuinely believed she possessed another person's memories of abuse that felt utterly real and authentic to her, but which had been conjured through suggestion and expectation rather than genuine experience. The case illuminated for me that the boundary between memory and imagination, between past and present, between self and other, is significantly more blurred than we typically acknowledge. It demonstrated that our sense of personal identity, which we consider robust and dependable, is actually built upon a foundation that can prove surprisingly unstable. However, perhaps the most chilling lesson derived from Holly's case is its universal applicability. Under the right circumstances, with the appropriate confluence of suggestion and expectation, any one of us could develop false memories that feel entirely genuine. We could awaken one day convinced that our childhood was distinct from what we recall, that traumatic events occurred which never actually took place, or that individuals we love and trust actually caused us harm. The Holly Ramona case remains one of the most seminal events in the annals of psychology and neuroscience. It fundamentally reshaped our understanding of memory, therapeutic practice, and the very nature of human consciousness. For me, it will perpetually serve as a stark reminder of the inherent fragility of our grasp on reality and the ease with which the narratives we construct about our own lives can be distorted by forces beyond our immediate control. The Holly Ramona case did not merely alter my professional outlook, it fundamentally transformed my personal experience of life. 3 months after the trial concluded, I found myself lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom during a visit to my parents' home. I was gripping the bedsheets, my heart pounding as a terrifying thought encompassed me. What if the tender recollections of my grandfather gently tucking me into bed each evening were not entirely truthful? That particular memory had always held a cherished place in my heart, the familiar scent of his aftershave, his presence at the edge of my bed as he recounted tales from his youth, the comforting warmth of his hand on my forehead as he whispered goodnight. Yet now, engulfed by the darkness of that very childhood room, I found myself grappling with the unnerving possibility that this treasured recollection might be a mere fabrication, a beautiful deceit meticulously crafted and refined by my mind over the years. I began an incessant scrutiny of my own past, compelling myself to fact-check every detail. I'd phone my mother at inconvenient hours, pressing her to confirm specifics about family vacations, birthday celebrations, and conversations I distinctly remembered having with my father. Her apprehension grew regarding my compulsive need for verification, but I was powerless to stop. The case had infused me with a pervasive memory paranoia, leading me to question everything I believed to be true about myself. "Rachel, darling, why are you interrogating me about that camping trip from when you were 8?" my mother inquired during one particularly trying phone call. "You've recounted that story countless times. You remember it perfectly." But that precisely was the crux of the issue. My recall of it was too perfect. The dialogue was too precise, the emotional nuances too neatly compartmentalized, the narrative too gratifying. Authentic memories rarely possess such pristine clarity. Having worked with Holly, I understood that the most convincing false memories often felt the most genuine. I started examining my childhood photographs with the meticulousness of a detective analyzing crime scene evidence. Did my smile in that Christmas morning photo genuinely radiate happiness? Or was I subconsciously performing joy because that was the expected emotion? Had my bond with my siblings truly been as close as I recalled? Or had I glossed over the conflicts and complexities inherent in every family dynamic? The most unsettling revelation occurred 6 months after the trial, while I was sifting through old family videos. I discovered a recording of my 8th birthday party. As I watched my younger self extinguish the candles, I confronted the stark reality that my memory of that day diverged entirely from what the video depicted. I remembered wearing a blue dress and feeling a flush of embarrassment because I couldn't blow out all the candles in a single breath. Yet in the video, I was clad in red and successfully extinguished all 8 candles with one gust, to the cheers of everyone present. My memory wasn't merely inaccurate, it was a complete fabrication. I had constructed an entire false narrative about my own birthday party, replete with emotions and sensory details that felt utterly real. If I could be so mistaken about something as straightforward as a birthday party, what other aspects of my past might be mere fiction? I initiated a daily journaling practice, meticulously documenting every facet of my life in an attempt to create an objective record impervious to the corrupting influence of memory. But even this felt futile. How could I trust my perceptions in the present moment any more than I could trust my recollections of the past? This paranoia seeped into my professional life as well. During patient evaluations, I found myself second-guessing every assessment, questioning whether my clinical observations were accurate or if I was unconsciously projecting my own expectations onto my patients' presentations. The confidence I had painstakingly built over 14 years of practice shattered, replaced by an enduring uncertainty that made every decision feel potentially catastrophic. My relationships also suffered. I grew suspicious of shared memories with friends and family, constantly demanding confirmation of events we had experienced together. My husband grew exasperated by my persistent need to verify every anecdote, every shared experience, every moment of our relationship that I claimed to remember. "Rachel, you're making our entire history feel like it's under investigation," he remarked during one particularly strained conversation. I fell in love with a woman who was confident in her own experiences, not someone who questions every memory we've created together. But I was unable to halt. The case had illuminated the truth that memory is, at its essence, a creative act, that each time we recall an event, we are, in effect, rewriting it. This realization was simultaneously intellectually captivating and existentially terrifying. If our memories forge our identities, and yet our memories are unreliable, then who, truly, are we? I began to grasp, in a profoundly visceral way, what Holly had endured when she discovered that her most traumatic memories were false. The disorientation, the erosion of fundamental certainties, the sickening realization that one's own mind cannot be trusted. These were no longer mere clinical symptoms I could observe from a professional distance. They were lived experiences that had become part of my own reality. The most terrifying facet of this realization was the impossibility of returning to a state of innocence. Once one truly comprehends the malleability of memory, one can never again possess absolute faith in one's own recollections. Every childhood story becomes suspect. Every foundational memory becomes questionable. Every certainty about one's past transforms at best into a probability. I sought therapy myself, harboring the hope of finding a way to reconcile my newfound understanding of memory with my need for personal certainty. Yet even this felt compromised. How could I trust a therapist to help me decipher my past when I knew how readily therapeutic techniques could induce false memories? The very process designed to assist me might, paradoxically, corrupt the memories I was striving to verify. 3 years after the Holly Ramona case, I made the difficult decision to specialize in a different area of neuropsychology. I could no longer continue working with memory-related cases when my own relationship with memory had become so fraught. The irony did not escape me. The very case that had cemented my reputation as an expert in false memory syndrome had also rendered it impossible for me to remain in that field. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself scrutinizing my own memories. Did that conversation with my father truly unfold precisely as I recall it? Was my childhood genuinely as joyful as I remember? Or have I unconsciously expunged the difficult moments? How many of my most cherished memories are partially or entirely fabricated? But the questions now delve deeper. I wonder if my memory of meeting Holly Ramona is accurate, or if I've subtly embellished certain details to make the narrative more compelling. Did she truly gaze at me with those haunted eyes? Or have I projected that detail onto my recollection? Did Gary Ramona's pain genuinely appear as profound as I remember? Or have I amplified it in my mind to align with the story I wish to tell? The most unsettling possibility is that my entire sense of self, my identity as a competent neuropsychologist, my understanding of my own childhood, my confidence in my professional capabilities, might be constructed upon a foundation of memories that are partially or completely false. If that is the case, then who am I really? And more importantly, how would I ever truly know? These are the profound questions that Holly Ramona's case compels us to confront, and they are questions that offer no comforting answers. When memory proves to be an unreliable guide, how can one truly ascertain their identity? And once the personal assurance in one's own recollections wavers, what avenues exist for its restoration?